So, hello, welcome back to a new video. So today we are going to talk not about the cheaper camera we've been talking about the last few days, but something that's actually needed for the more expensive cameras. So one of the problems we are having, of course, is with the Sony A1, which I love, it's my main camera, is that we had to pay quite a lot for Express A cards. And well, this week the cards started shipping, at least in Europe, with the major dealers of AngelBird, and AngelBird released 1 terabyte card. So let me again prepare for the screenshot. Very happy about this, and I'm pretty sure others are also happy. That does not mean that these are cheap cards. What you're seeing on the table is 1,200 euros of flash cards. In fact, if we count the ones in the camera at the moment, we can add that number up to 2,000 euros, which is silly. But we have to look at a little bit in comparison. So these cards are $600 a piece, so it's 1,200 euros. But they are 2 terabytes total, and that means that you can shoot, if you're using an A1, about 16,000 images per card in dual mode, so 16,000 images at the same time. In 50 megapixels compressed lossy RAW, which is the format I prefer. So the two questions that are left is, of course, will they make smaller versions? I think they will over time. So we can hopefully expect for about $300 512 gigs, which I think are better for most people, including me. But since they were not available, I opted for this one because I know that probably for a very long time I don't need to update anymore. Now, also we have to talk a little bit before we show the testing about does this make sense? I think many people will, I think rightly so, say, well, this might make sense for you, but why would you take the risk that you lose a card or a card gets corrupted if you have all your images, so 16,000, into one card? Now, that's true, and I can see why many people use smaller cards. I kind of shoot differently, and I think many people are starting to do that. I basically don't remove the cards at all. I always shoot 2 cards and just leave them in there for the whole trip or the whole event you are doing. And of course, that sounds dangerous, but I offload them regularly, so 2 times a day or after important moments, to my iPad. So that means that I have 2 copies in the camera, so that's 2 backups. The moment that I hook it up, and I'm not even taking the cards out anymore, I'm using USB-C. The moment I hook it up to my iPad, they flow to my iPad, and if I'm on a fast enough internet connection, Lightroom will automatically start uploading them to the cloud. That means that I have 2 on my iPad, copy number 3, and then syncing to the cloud, copy number 4. So that's my workflow at the moment. I also, because I'm not doing this for money most of the time, I'm also deleting a burst that I don't like. That means on one card, there will be the one that I'm basically syncing to the iPad. I will probably have less copies, or for sure I will have less photos than on this card, because I'm deleting bursts that were mistakes and didn't happen if you do wildlife and stuff like that. Or I tag them. So basically what I do is I create a burst of pictures. If I have time, I look at them and I say, well, these are the nice ones. You can lock them up. I've shown this trick before. Just quickly for people who have not seen that one. If you take a burst on any Sony camera in the last few years, there's actually a bug in there that you can use. So if you go into review a burst back and you lock a few images, except for the first one, which is kind of a weird bug, but if you lock the images that you want to keep and you go out of the burst again, it will only delete the ones that are not locked. So basically, let's just be practical. You made a burst of 50 pictures. You review it back in the camera. You tag the 4 or 5 that you think that are the perfect moment quite quickly. You then go out of the stack again, delete the stack. It will delete all the pictures except for the 5 that you have locked. And that means that you can quite quickly kind of cull your pictures and make the amount going to the iPad as a backup, in my case, and to the cloud a lot less. you still have a full backup in just in case on this one. So that's kind of the nice thing about using the 1 terabyte cards, because you have to shoot an awful lot before that goes wrong. So let's get into the testing. I will show you what I've done, but I also got the results on the card, which is green, so you don't see it, which is funny. Anyway, but I will tell you the results. The short of it is quite simple. The Sony cards and the AngelBird cards are just as fast. There's a slight difference when you start up the camera, because it has to basically go check 10 times the amount of space, or not 10, but 6 times the amount of space. So it takes a little bit longer if it starts off from cold. I will show that when the cards are in. But the end results are the same, but I do want to show you what I've tested, because I think that makes sense. I mean, I see a lot of people quoting the read and the write speed. I also see people sort of copying them to their computer, which makes a little bit of sense. But I think the things that I've tested makes the most sense, at least for me, and hopefully also for you. So let me turn on the camera and then get going. At the moment we have the Sony cards in there, and then we'll do them first. So what did I test? I tested basically 3 things. I put it on a high speed so that we know that we are getting our 30 frames a second. And the first thing I did is see the amount that we can write before the buffer slows down. Now that's basically always the same, plus or minus a few, the ones that it could already write to the card. And I always test 2 cards. I think it's also important to use the same cards, because they will start slowing down once they get up to speed. And if you use 2 different brands, I think it will probably slow down even more. So the second test we are going to talk about actually takes that writing speed of the card into account, because the first test should not be affected much about the speed of your card, because it's basically doing it to memory. That also means that the first 150 odd shots will be just as fast on an SD card. So here we go. Again, you can probably test it on the timeline. I'm not going to get my stopwatch and figure it all out. But here we go. Let me aim it a tiny bit more to our target. So basically I did this test. I shoot until I heard the buffer going down. It's taking quite a long time. Hopefully I didn't make a mistake. But let's see, it's writing them back. I'm not in crop mode. Should be fine. But let me see how much we have, right? So it's now still writing. Okay. How many shots did we get? 199, which is a bit odd because that's way more than I normally get. So I'm wondering if I made a mistake. Yeah, I did, because I'm on high and not on high plus. So I'm going to redo it. And then we should get about, so basically we learned that we can have 200 shots in high mode, so 20 frames a second. But if we go to 30 frames a second, we should get about 155. So here we go, and we see the bar going down much faster. It was a little bit late, but let's see how much we end up. And the second test I did is how much time it takes to write this whole buffer. So that does tell us something about the write speed of the cards. So, and indeed we got 153. Now the results that I got for the 2 different cards, which I will show also the other one, is 154 and on the Sony ones, and 157 on the AngelBird ones. I did it a few times, and it looks like the AngelBird is a little bit faster. Not that much, but a little bit. So what does that mean? That means that while it was shooting, it could write a few more to the disk, so it extended a little bit longer. Not an important one. Now the second thing, which you already have seen because I let it run down, so you can see it on the timeline, is the amount of time it took to write these all to the card. And I got the same result on both. They were about a half a second randomly faster or slower, but basically it took 20 seconds to write them to the disk. Now the third test, which I will also show, is in a way the most interesting one. So I reversed it. I said, what happens if we record for 10 seconds? How many shots do we get? Because the first half is basically it just filling up the buffer. The second part tells us how much it could keep shooting, limping along, let's call it like that, limping along, while also writing these pictures to the disk. So I will do that on both also, because if you're not interested, you'll probably stop watching anyway. So I'll get my iPhone and measure out the 10 seconds. Again, I'm doing this while recording, which is probably going to be a bad idea, but we will do it anyway. Like I said, I already have the results. But here we go. So I'm pressing the button until I see 10 seconds, but we see it here now that it starts sort of slowing down. I left it too early, about half a second. So this is not a great test. So we'll wait until it has written and all to the disk. It has done that now, and we will look into this burst. And we got 193 because I left it a little bit early. Normally it should be about 199 to 100-ish for the Sony. I put on my paper 198, so it's pretty close. So this is the Sony cards. Let me put the AngelBird cards in because that's what you want to see. Although I already gave you the results. And here you see the Sony cards. Well, you don't see them, but now you do see them. So the Sony cards are there. So this is crazy to say, but this is combined 2,000 euros of cards. One thing I don't like about the AngelBird, they kind of look the same, is that they're all black. I wish they would have made them orange, but because can you imagine that it is dark and you drop one how difficult will it be to find back? I think they should have made them bright orange so that it's easy to find them back. I'm more upset, to be fair, about these cards because these cost me 400 a piece and these cost me 600 a piece, but these are 160 gigabytes and these are 1 terabyte. So 6 times the amount for a pretty okay price. So let me put them into the camera. Now I forgot which one was card A and which one was card B, so we don't know what it will display on, will show us on the display. Now these I'm going to put back in the small case because even though there are the old cards, I don't want to lose them. So I'll put them in this nice small rig slider thingy. So at least I don't lose them. So back to the other camera. Nope. I will take the screen out a little bit so that you can see it again. So one thing you already noticed, which I think is funny, but I hope Sony fixes it. You see that the number, I hope that you see it. Because it's, well, let me do it like this and you can see it a bit better. You can see that it shows you 9999 for 9,999 for both of the cards. So the funny part is that the amount of shots that you still have left is too big. So hopefully Sony fixed this, but because if on an empty card, you should have about 16,000 shots per card again in this compressed RAW mode. I hope they fixed it because that would be nice. One reason why it would be handy is because the number of shots on the card is also not valid. Because of course it tells you how many shots I've taken. So in this case it claims that I've made 3 shots, which of course is not true because a burst is counted as 1 shot. So I actually have no idea how many pictures I've taken. If I take 5 burst shots of 200 pictures each, it will tell me 5 shots and not way more. So let's do the test again, but now with the AngelBird cards. So the first test was filling up the buffer and then letting go. And you can on the timeline see if the writing takes 20 seconds again. So here we go. I think it was a bit early again, but it's writing again. Of course you can start shooting while it's writing the buffer. And let's see how many we got. 156. So that's basically within the range. It's a little bit faster than Sony. I noticed that if I don't make a mistake, it turns out to be 3-4 shots faster than the Sony. Yeah, that's nice, but not that is a showstopper. I think the most important information is that it's not slower. Let's also do the 10 seconds test. And again, we should get about 200. So pressing my stopwatch, and here we go. And again, around 5 seconds, which is about now, it should start slowing down. Watching the stopwatch, and let go, and we will see how many shots we end up with. So this is basically if you're doing such a long burst that you get into this buffering area, which will get faster, of course, if you do lossless or even uncompressed RAW, which I personally think don't make too much sense, but it's already done. So let's see how much we got in this burst. 198. So about the same as Sony. On my first test, I got a 201. So you can see the AngelBird is at least as fast as the Sony ones, probably a tiny bit slower. What's also interesting is to wonder who is now actually the limiting factor. It could be that the camera is actually now the limiting factor again, which would not be weird because we have seen the same thing in the past on SD cards. So yeah, not sure if I can show you anymore. I think the open question now is with the AngelBird cards is when are they going to release the smaller ones, because not everybody wants to spend terabyte money. And I think they should, if they do it linearly, which probably is not going to happen. So let's add a little bit for that. I would not be shocked if they are asking 350 euros for 512 gigs the moment that they release it. But for now, it's only 1 terabyte. And again, with the different workflow, or if you're really into video, then this makes sense. Otherwise, you probably want to wait. But who will spend 400 on the Sony ones if you can spend 600 and have 6 times the amount of space? Doesn't make sense. So the question then only is left, how stable are they? Of course, that's the reason why we are shooting to 2 cards. And we don't know. The problem that, of course, we have is that AngelBird, as far as we know, and we have seen from their other cards, is a pretty stable brand card provider. And Sony, yeah, if we are really fair and open, we have seen several problems with the tough cards from Sony, including the Express A card. Well, have we? Yeah, I think we have. Not sure, but for sure we have seen problems on the SD cards from the TOF series from Sony. So yeah, I guess only time will tell, right? I mean, that's the most realistic answer we can give. Only time will tell if this is a stable solution. The thing that we do know, at least what they claim, is that for Sony we don't know who's producing these cards. AngelBird claims that they are making their own card design and letting them build, of course, by a company, but that they do the whole process themselves. So yeah, I think they will be fine, to be fair, in the way that I shoot them. So always to 2 cards and backupping them quite quickly to an iPad. I feel fine and comfortable in doing this. The result, of course, the counter result is that I don't take the cards out of the camera. I always use USB-C, so there's not much that can go wrong in that area. So again, I managed to talk 20 minutes about something as simple as flashcards. So yeah, hopefully it was useful for you. And if not, at least you have spent 20 minutes not doing anything terrible to the world, or whatever I wanted to say. If you don't like this end of the video, I agree with you, it was a stupid ending. So see you in the next one, and bye bye.